Yield to a senior member of Congress, not in age, but in years of service, Marcy Kaptur.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much, and happy birthday. This is just the beginning of your life. Mr. Borowski, thank you so very much. You have a really important job on behalf of the American people and your staff, and we thank you for that.
Thank you.
First question, what more can we do to help you do your job?
Congress has been amazingly supportive of our agency since we've begun, and we really have, I think, all the necessary tools in place right now.
All right. Your report came out today. Most members of Congress have not had a chance to digest it and take it apart. Would you be willing to come back, or your staff, and help us ferret out some of the information we feel we still need in its interpretation? Would you be willing to do that?
Of course. At any time, my staff will be available to brief your staff, and any time this committee or any of the subcommittees want to hear our testimony, we will always be available. We're a creation of Congress, and it's part of our job is to inform the American people through its representatives of everything that's going on. So, of course.
All right. Now, you have a hotline, 877-SIG-2009. Your report states you received over 3,000, I think, 3,200 tips from the American people. That hotline is available to the American people if they work for one of these hotshot companies and they were involved in activity that they've now reflected on, might not have been cricket and above board. They can report that to you, can't they?
Yes, and they can also and should also go to our website if they don't want to use the phone, www.SIGTARP.gov. This has been a crucially important aspect of what we do. More than half of our criminal investigations have been initiated by tips from the hotline. So people are using it, and we really strongly encourage.
So some of those tips are good?
Some of the tips are very good.
All right. So the American people have to muscle up here as well. And I think the fact it's a free phone number, 877-SIG-2009, people ought to use it. And this was networked across the country, and there's knowledge all across America, and we need to pull it together. I can tell you in my region of northern Ohio, mortgage foreclosures are going up, unemployment is going up, and 4 businesses told me this weekend they can't get credit, and these are excellent businesses. The system is not working at the grassroots level in Ohio. My major, and I voted against the TARP, I voted against the bailout, because I thought that it wasn't the right means to resolve a crisis inside the mortgage system. We'd done that before, back in the 80s, when we used mark-to-market accounting. We actually went into the books of troubled institutions using FDIC examiners and SEC accounting. Accountants, so you had accountants plus bank examiners in there, and the burden was not put on the American people. This is back when Continental Bank failed in Illinois, when all the banks in Texas went down but for one. So when they came up with this concoction of this particular means, vesting all this power in Treasury and ramrodded it through Congress here 6 weeks before an election, I have to tell you I became very, very suspicious, and I still am. And one of my questions to you is, you talk about you've had background in your own life in mortgage fraud. Have you ever had a background in control fraud and systemic fraud?
I don't know how much control fraud or systemic fraud, as sort of cases are concerned. I've certainly been involved in securities fraud of some truly systematically, would probably today be considered systematically significant institutions, and looked at some of the accounting frauds and frauds that those companies have committed.
I would urge you very much to look at, of course, the Enron situation, who was hired, the staffing you're going to be doing, and if people at a high enough level, because this goes to the highest levels of finance and of institutional structures in our country, and ultimately it had international repercussions. But I would urge you to look at the Enron situation and to think about the kind of staff that you might hire up in the additional authorities that you have been given.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because we just recently brought on, I prosecuted the REFCO matter, and we just recently brought on as one of our attorney advisors one of the prosecutors on the WorldCom matter. So we are gearing up with that in mind.
All right, very good. One of the most insightful people I've read on this is Mr. Bill Black out of the University, I think it's Missouri, Kansas City, and he had worked for the Commodity Futures Trading Corporation back in the early 90s. I don't believe he's for hire, but I'm just saying his way of thinking about what went on is very, very useful, and I wish to share that with you. I also want to put two issues out there. One is warrants, and my deep concern about, for instance, Goldman Sachs and their warrants. It's my understanding that the American people have the right to 12.2 million shares of Goldman, according to the numbers that I have. And Goldman actually has the privilege under the agreement of determining when our taxpayers have to sell those warrants and exercise their rights, so they control the price and they control the timing. I think it's really important on the warrant issue that you examine these warrant potentials, sales prices, and the timing of this for the American people, because the other day the price was $1.60 a share, and apparently Goldman was saying, well, you know, we'll sell to you for $122.9. That difference yields $450 million. If we were to sell today, what if we held it for 9 years? Nobody's asking those questions as far as I know, and I'm very concerned that the American people with Goldman and all these other companies get their money back plus.
We have an ongoing audit into exactly these issues on the warrant repurchase process. So that is something that is pending that we're looking at.
All right. And, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say for the record, I don't have time to ask on the PPIP program, but what troubles me, Mr. Borowski, is some of the very individuals, forget the company names like BlackRock, but the people who were involved in inventing the mortgage subprime instrument, then moving it to market, changing it from a bond to a security, and then creating the derivative instruments, changed the companies they were in. But now they're the same people that have gone to the Fed and they've gotten these contracts. I really think you need to look at people and where they were in the system over the last 20 years and what impact that has had now on our economy and who's in place, in my mind, with potential power to cover over some of their own very bad mistakes. And I would urge you to look at those firms closely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlewoman's time has expired. I now yield to the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr.